Hey guys, welcome back to the Talk Podcast. My name is Zach, and today I have one that I'm super excited for. If you've been following along, you know that we have just started a series going through distractions. I think distractions are something that's really important to us as Christians, and even to those that don't necessarily follow Jesus. I think they're important because distractions are exactly what they sound like, distractions, and maybe sometimes we don't even realize that we're distracted. So today I have one that is very special and important to me because I feel like this is something that all of us struggle with. Today's episode is on hurry and busyness. You're busy at school, you're busy at work, you're busy with your family, you're busy playing sports, you're busy with your friends, you're busy at this function, you're busy at that function, all these things that take up space and just create busyness for us. One guy that you might know, and maybe you don't, but this guy's name is John Mark Comer. He wrote this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I listened to one of his sermons, and what you can see is that his heart for eliminating hurry is real because he understands that it is a real problem. Most of the times, I don't think we understand how much of a problem hurry actually is in our lives. So, when you think of the enemy, you don't think of something that's good for you. I mean, hurry is probably not all bad. You have a job that you have to go to, and you have school that you have to do. Like, that's not a problem. Usually, when you think of your enemy or the devil, you think of the little guy on your shoulder, maybe that you've seen in a cartoon, or he he referred to some movie thing, but I don't remember what that was. But you don't think of it in terms of how he put it as, you don't think of it as an hour extra of work. Your job comes home with you. You don't think of it as an hour extra at school or doing schoolwork, or one that I think would really hit me. So I would get maybe it hits you, but one more hour of scrolling. So and then when I seen that and heard that, I was like, let me think about this. If I work 7 hours a day and I sleep 7 hours a day, let's just for easy numbers, that's 14 hours of my life that is given up in things that I have to do. Like I have to have money and I have to go to sleep. But that gives me 10 hours extra. In those 10 hours, we have to cook, we have to clean, we have to go to the gym, you have to hang out with friends. So let's just break that down. It's like the gym's an hour and a half, 2 hours, riding everything. And you got to shower. Then you got to cook, which takes 30 to 40 minutes, maybe an hour if you eat. So that's 3 to 4 hours. And then I look at my screen time. I'm on my phone for 4 hours a day, between 4 and 5 hours a day because of work. Like I don't get on at work. So that helps it a lot, I'm sure. And I was like, wow, like I'm constantly doing stuff. I don't have a ton of time extra to spend with God unless I forcibly make that time. And I think what is crazy and what he quotes, John Mark Comer quotes in the teaching that I watched, he quotes someone and they say this is, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. So I'll say that again, like if the devil cannot make you sin, if there's something that you won't do it because it's a sin, he's not worried about that. He's going to make you busy. And as I told you guys before, I think the enemy's easiest plan is not to get you to deny God, but to just get distracted from God. And, when Comer stated this, I was like, wow, like this is right because it's, if the devil can't make you sin, he can tempt you this, that, and the other. But if you're not going to fall for that, what he can do is make you busy because we've become so accustomed to being busy. Everywhere you look, busy. Think about this. I meet you in the street. Hey, how are you doing? I'm good. Just super what? Busy. It's a crazy, crazy thing. And it's like, how busy am I? And I think it was so neat during his time speaking. He stated, when their church was going through a transformation, he talked to somebody that was a psychologist in their church. I'm not sure what his connections were, if he was just a member, if he was just going or what that was, but this guy was about 70, maybe older than 70 or so, and he did psychology. And the one thing that he kept going back on, the guy that John Mark talked to, was that the reason people don't grow spiritually, emotionally, physically, um, and they don't heal from things spiritually, emotionally, or physically is because they're busy. And what I got from that is we try to keep our minds busy all the time and do all these things to create busyness for us. And John Mark came up with this, or said this thing about hurry sickness. And I'm not sure if it came from him or somebody else, but I don't remember what he said in terms of that. But he had there was 3 points, and it's kind of funny because just looking at these, I kind of strike all three buttons, okay? So what's crazy is, to me, these are things that are normal. This is what I would expect somebody to do. So you get to a checkout line. There's another checkout line that doesn't have as many people where it's moving faster. You're going to move to that checkout line. Or you're at a stoplight. This is what I do. You're at a stoplight, and there's 4 cars in this lane and 2 cars in this lane. Me personally, I'm getting over to get in the 2-car lane instead of the 4-car lane. Or, one that I do too is I multitask. I try to think of, okay, if I have to go here, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. Or do this, that, and the other. But what happens is I do this, this, and I forget this. So it says you often multitask but then forget the task. So I think what's crazy, and he called this hurry sickness. We are so accustomed to hurry. And maybe none of these things are bad, but I do think that they all create a sense of hurry. You know, if a checkout line's moving quicker, I'm not trying to sit there and just wait. Like, I want to go. I want to hurry. Stoplight, I want to be the first car past the line from the stoplight. And multitask is I want to get everything I can at one point so I don't have to do it again. Or come back and do something different. Something also neat that I thought he spoke about was pathological busyness. And what he described this as is when you don't have a lot to do, but you have too much to do. Things like relationships, families, jobs, school. Basically forcing yourself to speed up your mind and your body. And I was like, what does that mean? Is that even a term? And so I looked it up. And pathological busyness, if you look it up, it has a little AI description. But basically, it's a compulsive, addictive need to stay constantly occupied. I think for me, that is something that we always have to be occupied with something. We have to be doing something. You know, I've seen people, or even myself, is like, I just can't sit still. Which I think is a real thing. There's this reality that we have to constantly be doing something. If we're not doing something, then we're not doing something right. And so again, like, none of this may be bad, but I want to touch back on the point that, you know, the enemy doesn't have to have you do anything bad. You just have to be distracted. So I think what was pretty neat, he gave a list of 10 things to show that you're moving too fast. And I only put 6 down because they were the ones that really, I guess, mattered to me or really hit me. Well, yeah, kind of. But I just want you to listen to these and tell me which ones that correlate with you or which ones you relate with. And irritability, so you get mad quick. Is this irritability? Everybody knows what irritability is. Hypersensitivity, so you kind of get emotional quickly on different things, whatever. Restlessness. Compulsive overworking. Emotional numbness. And then slipping on spiritual practices. So for me, just to be completely honest, mine, I struggle with irritability, restlessness. I always got to be on something, or look, I'll just take a nap or something. But that's beside the point. And then probably slipping from spiritual practices because, again, I think once you realize, or once you see that you're busy, I think what's sad, the reality is Scripture goes kind of out the window, and worship music kind of goes out the window, and all these things that the practices that grow you spiritually go out the window. And I think that is the full purpose and intent of the enemy is to get those things to go out the window, because the further those things are from you and further out the window they are, the harder it is to get back to those things, and the further it draws you from God. And then also, Kramer's brought up a really cool point about people reading their Bibles. And the point that he had was, why do so many people not read the Bible, or why do so many people not like the Bible? And I think the point that he was making is it's boring to read because it takes a while to dive into it. And because if you read at surface level, it's like, whatever. But what do you get out of reading the Bible surface level? So he had two kind of big ideas that I got from his whole sermon, and the importance of understanding this aspect of what it is in terms of busyness. One is there's more at stake than our mental health. Your mental health is precious and valuable, and you matter, and everything that you think and feel matters. But I do believe, and this is what Comer says, is that our spiritual health hangs in the balance. So like our mental health is distracted and it's compromised too by our busyness, but more than our mental health, our spiritual health hangs in the balance. Like this, your mental health matters, but your spiritual health is so much deeper and more, because this is your eternity. And this one is the one that's like, it's hanging in the balance. It's like, oh, we're there, baby. But, and then two, and he made a lot of points about this during his sermon, but with all this busyness, we struggle to love people. I'm going to touch back on this in just a second. But the thing is our love, once you know Jesus, comes from God. And the more that we allow him to love us through his word, through his teachings, through his songs, or through his time, his presence in our lives, the more that we allow him to love us, the more love we can share and show to other people. And I do want to say that the only way that we can really do that is that we have to slow down. I think I think Comer's in his sermon talked about a book. I can look it up real quick too. But it was it's called 3 Mile an Hour God. And it talks about, like, I don't know exactly what it talks about, but the way he speaks about it is that our minds are moving 100 miles an hour, but our God is walking at 3 miles an hour. And so we have to slow ourselves down to do that. And he brought up a cool point too about Jesus and a guy that he was listening to at some point, or read a book about, or a book that somebody wrote. He said that if there was one way to describe Jesus, it would be I don't remember the exact term, but it was on the word of calm, but not calm. It was calm, but it was like a slowed version. I can't remember the term. That is terrible. But it was something like that. It wasn't a term that I would have thought of Jesus, because he had so much busyness. But Jesus was always walking. Jesus was always looking for people to love. And I think that's our job on earth, and as people, as followers of Christ, our job is to look for people to love. But how can we look for people to love if we're busy? See, the thing is busy is more than just having a booked up schedule. Business affects more than just your life, like your schedule in your life. It affects how you act. And I love this, and I'll get back to this point in just a second. But also I listened to a sermon by Jonathan Pokluda. And the way he set up the message was, he was saying that he thinks of a word to kind of live his year through. And in the year, I'm not sure what year it was, but the word for him that year was encouragement. Because he said, if you're a good leader, you're a good encourager. And so he's sitting in his car before they had a meeting. And he felt that God spoke to him and said that busyness is the enemy of encouragement, or the enemy of something, I forgot. But basically, he said that in the meeting, and then one of the guys in the meeting said, imagine how many words you can fill in that blank. So, and what that means is busyness is the enemy of blank. And so just a couple that Pokluda did was busyness is the enemy of focus. Busyness is the enemy of empathy. Now, through this, the story that he used to describe and to show busyness was a story that I'm sure some of you may know, and if you don't, that's completely fine. But Luke 10:38 through 42, there is two sisters, Martha and Mary, and Jesus is coming to visit them. Martha and Mary were the sisters of Lazarus, one of Jesus' friends. The thing is if you know the story, then cool. I'm not going to read it for you guys, but I will tell you briefly what it was about. Basically, Martha, like I just said, Martha and Mary are sisters. Jesus walks in the house. Mary sits down at the feet of Jesus. She is in awe of Jesus. She is there just enjoying Jesus. Martha, however, on the other hand, is not. She is getting stuff done. She is trying to perfect things. She's trying to make sure everybody has this and that. And she's going a million miles to nothing. And at some point during this time period, Martha gets upset. And she's like, Jesus, tell Mary to get up and help me. I'm doing all this work for you, and she is doing nothing but sitting here. And Jesus looks at Martha and tells her, no. Mary is exactly where she needs to be right now. And what Pokluda said was pretty neat. He kind of explained how I have a resume saying that I worked here and did this and went to school here and there. Their resume was people that they sat at the feet of, a very symbolic meaning. Which is super cool. But I think the point of it is showing that Martha was so worried about this when Martha should have been so worried about just sitting at the feet of Jesus and just stillness and being there and listening. One thing that was super cool to me, at least neat to me, was his third point, Jonathan Pokluda's third point in the message that he preached. Busyness is a self-inflicted problem. I don't think we often think of busyness as a self-inflicted problem, as in the terms of, oh, well, I put this on me. And when he made the point that, if I tell you I'm busy, the likelihood that you care that I'm busy is very thin. Because everybody's busy. Everybody has things to do. And I think that was so neat, because I think it shows that maybe I do make myself busy. Maybe I am the problem in the situation of self-inflicting busyness upon me in my life. And then the last point that I would put is that the last point that JP put is that busyness is the enemy of peace and joy. Obviously, in the terms of busyness, you think of movies and you think of maybe, I don't know, say the movie's probably about the kid, but the dad is always at work, he's super busy, doesn't spend time with the kid, or when he does, he comes home, he's not fully there, he's not fully present, and it's just his dad's busy, so it doesn't show peace and joy in that sense. But Pokluda made a statement too. He's talking about he's at dinner with his family in their living room, or not living room, but in their dining room, and he gets a phone call. And in reality, maybe that phone call is just going to be a, hey, what's up? But maybe there's an important thing. And family time's important, but say Pokluda answers the phone call, and it's a super big gospel situation, which is great. But now, Precluded then is no longer present at the table with his family. He is physically present, but mentally he is off in another space, thinking about something completely different. And I think that's what's so neat is busyness is not the form of just doing things. It is literally in everything that you do. You think about random things at random times in all types of situations. And just like when I was writing this out, I probably looked at my phone 3 times. You're like, what if I have a text? What if I have this? What if I have that? Instead of just being in this and chilling and slowing down and reading and writing, I know this, that I would still look at this or still find busyness in other things. And again, this is not me saying that I didn't take time on this or didn't prepare for this, but it is me saying that I know there was a point where I was distracted at some point during the writing of this. I think that's neat because there is that reality that, yes, you can lock in, but there's also the reality that one little thing can pull and distract your attention. To add to Bakluda's points, I would say that busyness is the enemy of patience. When you're busy, say you got a stoplight, you have to go to work, but the light don't turn green, or somebody pulls out in front of you. Your patience are thin and it's wore out. I would say that busyness is the enemy of love. And I would say busyness is the enemy of kindness. And if you caught a trend to what I was saying, I would say that busyness is the enemy of love, joy, peace, patience, and kindness. That's 5 of the fruits of the Spirit. And those 5 that were mentioned just right now. And so how can we show the fruits of the Spirit to other people and let the fruits live through us and show fruits if we're always busy? I think that's something we have to think about, because God calls us to live with these fruits, and if we're busy and we don't take the time to slow down to the 3-minute or 3-mile-an-hour God, we are way beyond where we need to be at. Because I'm not sure which one it was, but one of them was talking about how I think it was Comer's, the importance of love. And busyness distracts us from loving each other. So, one thing I want to ask you, just kind of think about for the next few minutes or next few weeks or so, because I think there's a reality where busyness is in and throughout your life, and you are entangled in busyness. And as Comer said, there's nothing I can tell you, or there's no 1, 2, 3 step process on how to eliminate busyness. I think it is something you have to actively try to destroy, and you can say no to people. You can not go to things. You can slow down and spend time with God. And I think if you're a follower of Jesus, it's so important to slow down, because your goal and your calling in life is to share the gospel with people that do not know who Jesus is. And if we are too busy to slow down and recognize that, and we just keep going and keep going, how many people do we miss? And so that's my question. If our life is always in a hurry, how many opportunities do we miss to share the gospel with people around us? I think that's a question that we actually should take serious, because I think it is a genuine real question, because the gospel matters. The biggest thing, and what one of the two brought up, is that the greatest commandment that we have to follow is love. And one of the biggest struggles when we're busy and hurry, we struggle to love people. Because we have all these other thoughts on our plate. And when we have all these other thoughts, love kind of goes out the window. And so I want to encourage you with this is, you have the ability to slow down. You have the ability to walk down the street with your head up, slow pace, just enjoying where you're at, and look for opportunities to share the gospel, to look for opportunities just to be a light to other people. You have the ability to tell people, hey, I'm not going to make this tonight, just to spend some time with God. You have the ability to be like, you know, let me go talk to these people. You know, I have the ability to not answer that phone call that I know is going to make me get busy or have a some conversation. And again, I think the point that I want to stick with and I want you guys to think about is busyness itself is not bad. But there are so many things and so many gospel scholars that talk about how busyness kills Christianity. I believe Comer said something about there was a New York Times post about busyness being the religion of atheists because of whatever reason, but I believe that was something that was said, and I think that's crazy because it's so easy to get busy, and it's so easy to get led away from the Lord because of our busyness. And so one thing I want to leave you guys with is that it's okay to be busy. It's okay to have a job and go to the gym and cook and scroll on your phone for a little bit and do all these things, but you have to be conscious and careful with the amount of time you are being busy. I think it was kind of neat because there was one guy that I met, and he took a Sabbath. Like, he did exactly like on Sundays, he didn't do nothing but chill and sit with God. And I was always like, wow, that's so weird. Like, obviously, I know in the Old Testament they did it, and they would slow down and do all that stuff and everything, but I've never actually seen it in my life. And then I seen it, and it's like, wow, that is crazy. But thinking about it, it's like, maybe you don't have to do a whole, whatever, but it's like he slows down to take time with the Lord because it's that important. Because it's more than just your mental health that is at risk when you're busy. It is your spiritual health. And also, you have the ability to spiritually encourage and help other people through your ability to balance busyness and a Christ-centered life. Because again, the whole point of all of this is to show that, Jesus doesn't need you not to be distracted or busy. He just wants to be the center of your heart and attention. Because if he is the center of your heart, he is the center of your mind, your busyness drastically fades because your care about these things that you care so deeply about don't matter near as much because Jesus is the one that is truly what you care about. And once you truly care about Jesus, your heart and your desires change to what Jesus' heart and desires. Heart and desires? Sounds good. Anyways, just think about that. When we know Jesus, our hearts and desires change to the desires of him, which is such a great blessing. Because if it didn't, what changes? If it's my desires are going to be the same. It's Jesus' desires for his kingdom. And that is our job as Christians. But, yeah. So, like I said, I was super excited about this one. I hope it makes sense. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys understand busyness is going to be a part of your life, but your job and calling is to fight busyness with Scripture and fight busyness with Jesus. Because at the end of the day, it is more than just your mental health or your health. It is your spiritual health and even the spiritual health of those around you. Because by following Jesus and all these things, you allow yourself to love people like Jesus loved. And that is the biggest thing that you can do. So, anyways, that's it for this one. I'm so excited and hope you guys continue to follow along in this series. I appreciate you guys. So, yeah, peace.